Good evening. Hello. I'm glad you're here. It's time to begin. We're in the book of Proverbs, and we're in chapter 28, and we left off around verse 21. Anybody have a microphone? I know Eddie's got one. Jeff's got one. I think you got Jeff. Dan's got one. All right. Dan, can you lead us in prayer since you have a mic there?
Father in heaven, again, we're grateful unto you for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you, Father, for so many wonderful blessings. We know every good and perfect gift comes from above. Thank you this evening for our Bible class. Yes, Brother Jeff, as he teaches our lesson, we pray for the listening audience that they will be receptive to your truths, that many souls will be obedient to the gospel before it's everlasting delay. Be it those that have lost loved ones, comfort the Watson family, Father. Only you know how in a time like this. Thank you, Father, for Sister Chris's obedience to the gospel. Bless her as she continues to grow and be faithful. Continue to watch over us now and bless us. Again, we're thankful for the church and for Jesus. Forgive our sins. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
We're in, like I said, book of Proverbs, chapter 28, verse 21 is where we left off. And just for those who don't know, we have the microphones, and the reason for that is we found that when this is being streamed, when people have a comment, it can't be heard. You know, a lot of times you're kind of getting lost in what was going on or what was said, and so that's why we kind of have the microphones just spaced out, and hopefully in the future we might be able to come up with something a little bit better to where we won't have to hand out the microphones so much, but that's the reason for that. A few more weeks, probably a couple more weeks when we finish the book of Proverbs, Eddie is going to be teaching 2 Corinthians in here. So we're in chapter 28, about 3 more chapters to go in the book of Proverbs. Did I say 2 Corinthians or say first? 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians will be taught in here by Eddie. And we've, like I said, probably a couple more Wednesday nights, and we'll try to wrap up the book of Proverbs. Verse 21, we're talking about respect of persons. God is not a respecter of persons, and it's not a good thing to be a respecter of persons, to show favoritism. Sometimes parents have a favorite child, you know, and sometimes favoritism is shown one toward the other. I was the favorite child. Was you? I can say that because I was the only child. You know? So, but you a lot, and sometimes it's not good to have a favorite, if it's in the workplace or if it's in family members, friends, whatever it might be. But he said there, to have respect of persons is not good, neither that a man should transgress for a piece of bread. Verse 22, he that hath an evil eye haste after riches, and knows not that want shall come upon him. Well, the man with an evil eye was said to have, not to have your best interest in Proverbs 23, 6 through 8. That type of person didn't really care so much about you, but yet he'd give you a whole lot of attention, but his intent was not right. And now, the evil-eyed man is depicted by hasting after riches. And we talked about this prior in some of the other verses, that this sort of man, the man that hastes after riches, he still doesn't have your best interest in mind. And he'll do whatever it is to make sure that he gets gain at your expense. He that rebukes a man shall afterward find more favor than he that flatters with the tongue. Solomon has said earlier in chapter 27, verse 5 and 6, better is open rebuke than love that is hidden. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are profuse. Well, a true friend, what will a true friend do for you? He'll tell you the truth. He'll tell you the truth and not what you want to hear. A lot of times that's what we want. We really don't want the truth. What was that slogan? It just come to my mind. I see the guy now, Tom Cruise. And what was the other actor? He was on a stand in a movie, and he said, you can't handle the truth. What was his name? Jack Nicholson. That's right, Jack Nicholson. You can't. Sometimes, is it always easy to handle the truth? No. Does everybody like to be rebuked? No, nobody likes it. But those who have a humble heart, once after the emotions are gone and you come to your senses, those who have a true humble heart will do what? If they're wrong, they'll make it right, right? And sometimes those emotions have to get out of the system. Sometimes when a friend tells you the truth, you might get mad. And then you might get over it, but then you might get mad again. But when everything subsides, you can come to your senses and you can talk with a friend and settle the matter. But a true friend will tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. So in verse 24 it says, "Whoso robs his father or his mother and saith, It is no transgression, the same is the companion of a destroyer." Imagine a young man or a young woman, a child for that matter, maybe late teens, early 20s or so, and mom and dad have taken some money and they put it aside, maybe for a vacation, maybe to pay some bills, maybe to try to get caught up, and they put it in a lockbox or they put it in their secret place, and yet the child goes in and he takes out half of that money and he goes out and just blows it. Should he feel good or bad about that? He should feel bad about it, right? I mean, they've saved up really a lot, and yet they go in and just take what they want and they spend it. They blow it on themselves. Well, they should feel bad. And Solomon says, "You are no different than the worst of the slothful, no good for nothing fools" that Proverbs talks about. He says, "Whoso robs his father or his mother and saith, It is no transgression, the same is the companion of a destroyer." That person is not very honest, are they not? Matter of fact, that person is also classified as a thief. Is that right? A thief. So in verse 25, "He that is of a greedy spirit stirs up strife, but he that puts his trust in Jehovah shall be made fat." Strife is stirred up by this person because he has little care for others. He doesn't have any care for anybody else. And he seeks only to gratify his personal need because the gain of riches. And that's what they're looking for. They want to get rich quick. And they'll do it at the expense of anybody. And so here it is. He says again, "He that is greedy spirit stirs up strife." It doesn't care if it makes you mad, because your best interest is not at hand. "He that trusts in his own heart is a fool, but whoso walks wisely shall be delivered." Verse 26. Well, the wise put their trust in God and they put their trust in His Word. And the fool is also identified as one who places his trust where at? In his own heart. He puts his trust in his own self. Well, God gave me a mind and I can think pretty rationally. So therefore, who needs God? When I can think for myself and I can do it on my own, well then who needs Him? Is that foolish or wise? It's foolish. So the wise put their trust in God and in His Word. So in verse 27, "He that gives unto the poor shall not lack, but he that hides his eyes shall have many a curse." Well, what we do to the poor, we do to God. And what we do for the poor, and what we don't do for them, those who are in need, we also do to ourselves. I know you've probably heard Wesley tell this story many times, and I've probably said it too. Remember the lady that came not too long ago? And Wesley, you help me out with it again, because I was in there on the phone calling, I think it was Ohio, trying to figure out if this was right or not, while he was in his office talking to this lady. The child had died. It was her daughter's child, right? And she had to get up, was it Ohio? Ohio to get up there to the funeral, and she needed so much X amount of money, and what were we to do? I mean, I'm listening to all this, and I'm on the phone. Do you know how many funeral homes are in this certain city of Ohio? I mean, I looked it up online. I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to call all these. I'm thinking they're like Elizabethton, 5 or 6 or something like that? Maybe not even that many. It was hundreds. There's no way. So I'm trying to call, and we had no information, just what she's telling Wesley. But Wesley goes ahead and gives her some money. But next week she was arrested in another church.
Yeah, they arrested her for let me lower my mic. They arrested her for ripping people off. And of course, we was one of them that got ripped off because, boy, she could turn the tears on.
Yes, you could.
And we were trying every way we could to investigate it. You were trying to find a funeral home. I was trying to call the daughter, but I couldn't get a hold of the daughter. According to her, the daughter had laid down because she was so heartbroken, over losing a child. And I thought, well, if I would have lost a grandchild, I'd want to be there. So I guess we'll give her the money. But we got ripped off.
Yeah, and what do you do in a situation like that? What if it was true? And you said, well, you know what, we get ripped off here all the time. We're not giving you any money. So what do you do? What is that? Get Eric to talk to her. We actually, when we were at Irwin, I don't know, Eric's not here tonight, is he? Eric's not here. We had a situation once where a young man came in, and he'd been there before, and he had came in, and he was somewhat of the same situation. And I said, well, hold on just a second. Let me get the elders and the deacon that you need to talk to. Well, they go back in there to this room, and they're in there talking to him, and Eric has this look on him. He's just standing there, giving him that police officer look, just standing there looking at him. And he says, do I know you? He went, oh, no, you don't know me. He said, yeah, I know you. He said, oh, no, you don't know me. I've never seen you before. He said, yeah, I just arrested you last week. I know you. I know exactly who you are. He said, oh, no. He said, well, thank you, gentlemen. And he's out the door, gone, But what do you do? What if what he was saying was true? And you pass him off as if, well, no, I'm not listening to you. I'm not going to help you. I had somewhat the same situation happen to me at Lake Hills. A man had been coming to services for about 2 or 3 weeks. And one Sunday morning, he said, man, I really like it here. He said, I think I'm going to start coming here. Well, he comes, and we said, oh, well, that'd be great. We'd love to have you. Well, that Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, I hear a knock at the door, and I go to the door, and it's him. He's got tears in his eyes, and he's just sobbing, crying. And I said, you okay? He said, I really need to talk to you. We come in and sit down in the office, and he says, my father died Sunday night. And my mother has just had a heart attack, and she's up in Virginia, and I need $38.34 to finish the plane ticket. And I thought, well, that's an awful odd number to ask for. An exact, precise amount. I said, well, hey, we'll do anything we can to help you. So I called Sherry, and I said, give me some money out of our tax money. I'll take envelopes, and I'll put have an envelope for taxes and put that in there. So bring me $100 out of the tax money. And she brought it to me, and I said, look, this should cover your plane ticket. What funeral home is he at? Or what funeral home? And he gave me the name, the number, and everything. What hospital is your mom at? Gave me the name of the hospital, number, everything. I said, here's $100. That'll get you up there, and that'll be able to get you some food and that sort of thing to get you back. He said, oh, this guy is sobbing. I said, here it is. And he said, well, you have a prayer before I go. I said, I sure will. So we had a prayer. He left. About 20 minutes later, and I watched him as he walked across the lawn of the church building. I thought, well, he's not really going in a direction that he should be going if he's going to go to the airport. And he doesn't have a car. He's walking. I thought, So I go back, and I called the number of the funeral home. And I said, do you have so-and-so here? He said, never heard of him. I said, he just died of a heart attack. Nope, don't have a man here by that name. So, okay. So I called the hospital. I said, do you have this lady by chance? She just had a heart attack, was been admitted. Nobody here by that name. This gentleman had been coming to services for 3 weeks or so. He did that just to make sure he played old Jeff. Now, what if I would have said to him, you know what? And he didn't look like he had much either. I said, you know what, we get this sort of scams all the time. People come in here, they say they need money. We're not going to help you. And he needed the help. And we turned him away. By doing that, what sort of light or what sort of impression am I making upon that young man? If it was true. Let's say that his dad died His mother was in the hospital, and he was trying to get up there, and I said, no, I can't do this. We get these all the time. You just got to go somewhere else. What sort of, go ahead.
I would rather err on the side of bad judgment.
That's right. That's right, any day. Any day. Any day. Any day. But there are situations to where people have been scammed so much that that's what they do. We're just not going to do it. But if it's true, what sort of influence does that play upon the people? Well, don't go down there and ask. They don't help nobody. But I think you're right.
And that's because people oftentimes in church Christ people won't help you out.
Yeah. And is that not only a reflection upon us, but it's a reflection upon who? God. Wes, you got something?
Jeff, when I was in Chattanooga preaching for White Oak, we had a number we could call.
Mm-hmm.
Say John Doe was looking for help.
Mm-hmm.
I could call that number and ask about John Doe. And they would have where he had been, asked him for help and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we gave him help, we were to call that number and tell them.
Yeah.
We gave him help on a light bill or rent or groceries, whatever we did.
Mm-hmm.
And they would not tell us where to help him or not help him.
Yeah.
They would just tell us what he had been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, that was very helpful.
Yeah, they had that too when I was there, and I found out after I done gave this guy $100. So that's how I found out about it. They still had that. I don't know if they still do now, but they had that when I was there too. The last verse, it says, when the wicked rise, men hide themselves, but when they perish, the righteous increase. Verse 28. Well, men hid from the wicked because such men would bring trouble and calamity. We talked about last week how when the wicked man or the wicked king or ruler died, how people will rejoice because now it brings happiness. There's no calamity upon them. And so a lot of times when people see bad people come around, what's the one thing they want to do? Flee. You ever been in a store or been somewhere and next thing you know, this guy walks in and he's got tattoos all over his face, maybe some bones out of his forehead and tattoos all over his body. He just looks mean. I mean, he looks mean. What's the one thing you do? You're constantly looking over your shoulder, and you don't know what type of person this is. I mean, he looks wicked. But yet, why is it that we're so afraid of people, and we classify them as being wicked because of the way they look? You ever seen a picture of Ted Bundy? Did he look wicked? But one of the most profound serial killers in U.S. history. But he didn't look wicked at all. Matter of fact, he was very, very persuasive person. And yet, we can look at a person and say, oh, he's very nice. I mean, we look at someone that is just tattooed up and looks like a demon, and we're like, oh man, that's the wicked person. We got to get away from them. But in true reality, that person could be more righteous than the person that looks good. Eddie, go ahead.
That's what the devil does.
That's right.
He comes to you in sheep's clothing. So he looks humble, looks pious, and really he's not.
He's not. That's where I was going to go. That's going to be the next point. Wolves in sheep's clothing. You're absolutely right. And men would flee from that. They flee from the wicked because of the calamity and the trouble that the wicked would bring. Now the righteous increase when the wicked perish out of the land because they are no more of a threat. And that's what we've seen in the previous verses. When these men died, the righteous were happy because the calamities were gone. So we get into chapter 29, he says, he that being often reproved hardens his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy. How could a person be so hardened in sin? How is it that a person can be so hardened in sin that they won't even listen to anything? You ever known someone like that? You talk. We use the expression to them, blue in the face. And it's as if they just don't get it. They're just so hardened in sin. This man has come to be so blind of his sin, that he never recognizes the need to change. You ever know someone like that? I mean, you can talk and talk and talk and talk, but he's so gone in his sin, he doesn't even see the value of changing or even repenting or even getting out. And what it boils down to is he's just having too much fun. In his mind, he's having too much fun in his misery to even think about repentance. And so therefore he's hardened in sin. He's become blind to it. And so in verse, and that's what he says, he that being often reproved hardens his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy. He's gone, way gone. What is it that when you talk to someone, and 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 they don't change, there's something that you do to your foot. What is it? You dust the dust off your foot, and what do you do? Move on. There's nothing else you can do. You've done your part. You've done your part. Verse 2, when the righteous are increased, the people rejoice. But when the wicked man bears rule, the people sigh. This passage is found at 28:28 as well. Men hid from the wicked because such men bring trouble and calamity to their lives. But notice that last part. But when the wicked man bears rule, the people sigh. Oh. You know, here we go. Bad things are going to happen now. They're going to happen now. This is not going to be good. This is not going to be good at all. All right, let's go back 4 years. You got Hillary and Trump. How many thought this? Oh man, if Hillary wins this, we're in trouble. You know, we're already in trouble. I mean, the last guy did a really good job at just messing this whole country up. But then if we thought Hillary got in there, oh man. If the wicked bear rule, boy, here comes trouble. Here comes a lot of sighs. Oh. And they've been trying to get him out of office ever since he was elected. Still trying. Whoso loves wisdom rejoices his father. But he that keeps company with harlots wastes his substance. You know, a father would rejoice with his son who loves wisdom because the aged man knows about the troubles of life. How many in here have feel like you know a whole lot more than you did when you was 18, 19 years old? Well, I know I do. I know I do. But how many here at the age of 18, 19 years old thought you knew it all? Everybody. I mean, that's the way you are. But as you go on through life, you find out, boy, I don't know anything. And I just thought I did. But notice that a father rejoices with his son that loves wisdom because he's listened to his father. He's listened. And therefore doesn't have to go through a whole lot of the calamities in life because parents have been there and they've told him and he's listened and he didn't go down that avenue that he shouldn't have went to. Parental responsibility. Parents are commanded to instruct and chasten their children. I mean, the book of Proverbs has talked about that a few times, about chastening the child. You know, spare the rod. We put the old adjective, spoil the child, but it actually says spare the rod, you hate the child. But we put the adjective, spoil the child, but it actually says hate the child. Parents, children are told to hear and gain interest in the instructions of their parents. How many in here would rather have a spanking than a lecture? Man, those lectures were brutal. They were brutal. Because you knew that, the A team comes on in about 15 minutes, you're going to have to sit here and listen to them talk for another 30. Just go ahead and spank me. That's right. It's depending on who was spanking, too. Sometimes you won't listen to the lecture. But also, those children who hear, gain interest, and obtain wisdom, you know what they do with their parents? They make them happy. They make them happy. You ever heard something of this nature? Well, our first child was just a breeze. But that second one, whew, man, oh man, it was a total difference. Woo! I mean, it was something else. They were always into something all the time, and you couldn't turn your back to hear that, to see where that child's into next. Man, but for a child to listen to instruction and gain wisdom, it makes them happy. Whoso loves wisdom rejoices his father, but he that keeps company with harlots wastes his substance. And so the child that rejects the father or the father's instructions and goes with harlots, you know what he does? He wastes the parent's substance. He wastes everything that the parents have tried to accomplish with the child. They throw it to waste. And so in verse 4 it says, the king by justice establishes the land, but he that exacts gifts overthrows it. We can probably go into a little politics here. When it comes to a king or a ruler, a political recipe for disaster for a country, guess what it is? Higher taxes. And he said this already in the book of Proverbs in chapter 28. You know, a king that wants to gain riches for himself, what does he do? When he raises the taxes, it causes the people not to eat because they're having to pay more and more into the government, and they don't have funds for themselves. What's one of the things that when going to elect a president that we listen for? Besides, morals like abortion and things of that nature. If you had a guy up there that says, I'm going to lower the taxes, but you had a guy up there that says, we're going to raise those taxes, which one's going to get more of your interest to listen to him? Lowering taxes helps who? It helps us. Going raising it, who's it going to help? It's going to help them. So notice, a king by justice establishes the land, but he that exacts gifts overthrows it. A man that flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his steps. In the transgression of an evil man, there is a snare, but the righteous doth sing and rejoice. How is it that flattery is a net or a snare that would cause one harm? How is that? You ever talk to someone that was very flattering? Anybody here a car salesman? Okay, now we can talk about them, all right? You ever notice someone about flattery? What is it about flattery and this person with flattery? I mean, a car salesman, he could be just a hunk of junk. But yet, to him, man, that's a Mercedes-Benz. I mean, look at that thing. Look how the paint don't shine. And how the muffler's about 2 inches from falling off. But you know what? You lower that thing down, you never know the difference. I mean, just flattering words. Tele-evangelist. Well, we can think of a bunch. Joel Osteen is a great motivational speaker, but that's all he is. You know what he uses? Flattering words. Flattering words. That's why 20,000, 30,000 people go there. Flattering words. And how can flattering words then do one harm? Let's go into the denominational world using flattering words. How's that doing people harm? Them wanting to hear what makes them feel good. How's that doing them harm? That's right. It's robbing them of the truth. It's robbing them of the truth is what it's doing. That's how it's harming them. And it can cause one to think more highly of themselves, too, than they ought. You think about the person that's using the flattering words.
Back on verse 4, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Where it talks about the king by judgment established the land. To me, that seems like when he does the just thing, the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he that receiveth gifts overthrows it. This is the guy that will take bribes. This is the guy that you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy that has no interest in your welfare or mine.
Yep.
This is the guy that wants to put money in his pocket. And so he's going to destroy. Think about all the lobbyists up in Washington, D.C., putting money in politicians' pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Not for your benefit nor mine. The drug industry up there buying off politicians to keep drug prices up and so forth, and we are the losers.
Mm-hmm.
We need people up there that will rule in a right and just way so that we'll get our fair due. And we won't get a fair due unless a person lives by the principles of the Bible.
That's right. And this sort of person is the type of use of flattering words. Eddie?
Jeff, in Romans 16:18, he says, they are such that serve not the Lord Jesus Christ, their own bellies, and then to your point, by good words and fair speeches, deceive the hearts of the simple.
Yeah.
So they're able to deceive people because they're using flattering words, like
Yeah.
you said.
And you see with the politicians, that's exactly what's happening. I mean, sounds good, and hey, it must be good.
Jeff, we need to be aware, just like I'll tell Kay, you're pretty and you're a great cook. You know what she always says? What do you want? You know, so the key there is when somebody really starts building you up, you're the greatest preacher in the world, you're the greatest this, the greatest that, a red flag ought to go up.
Yeah.
What's coming next?
Yeah.
You know, and so we got to be careful in those areas.
That's right. When you just reminded me, I said this before, when we first moved to Irwin, the first thing that they did for us was called a pounding. Where I'm from, I've never heard of a pounding. I thought, what are you talking about, a pounding? You know, when someone says, I'm going to give you a pounding, where I'm from, you better put your fist up because this is going to be a fight. I thought, what's happening here? I didn't know that they brought you a pound of, you know, sugar, flour, a pound of cereal, whatever it might be. It was a pounding. Well, for about, I don't know, 2 months or so, I guess, or maybe not even that long, we'd come home and there'd just be stuff at our door. You know, it might be a little bit of maybe some apples and fruit. One lady would bake fresh bread and just hang it on our door. And for long, I mean, we started getting all this food, we're getting a pounding. I thought, what are they doing, fattening us up with a kill? I mean, we never had anything like this happen. So it put up a caution to say, whoa, hold on, what's going on? Of course, they meant no harm by it, but still, you're right, Wesley. This is the type of person that just uses any type of flattery and for personal gain. The righteous takes knowledge of the cause of the poor. The wicked have not understanding to know it. Well, the wicked do not so much as even take notice of the poor or the poor man who suffers due to some calamity in life. Why is it? There's no interest of them. The righteous, on the other hand, when we look at a true faithful Christian, who is it that he needs to have at hand first? Of course, we're talking about God. I'm talking about as far as fellow man. Is it self? We are to deny self, are we not? And to take care of those before us. Make sure that they're taken care of. Self is to be first or last? Last. Now the wicked don't care so much for it. Scoffers set a city in a flame, but wise men turn away wrath. Verse 8. A scoffer. You know what a scoffer is defined as? I found this definition. The word scoffer means to make fun of or treat others with disrespect. A scoffer. Wes, did you have something?
Yeah, verse 7. Think about the Good Samaritan.
Oh, yeah.
It says, the righteous considereth the cause of the poor.
Yeah.
So the Samaritan considered the welfare of the man that had been robbed and beaten.
Mm-hmm.
But then look at the rest of the verse. But the wicked regardeth not to know it.
Yeah.
Well, you don't consider maybe the priest wicked
That's right.
or the Levite wicked, but really that's what they were to
Yeah.
a large degree, because they did not consider the welfare of the individual.
Yeah.
And the Bible points that out in Matthew 25 when we see somebody naked, somebody that needs clothing, somebody that needs food, somebody in prison, somebody sick, and we don't administer to their needs. The Bible says that we're in trouble with God.
Yeah.
Because we did not consider their cause. And therefore we become wicked in that sense.
Yeah. You know, when the priest went by to help that man, I often ask this. Now, they're priests. Did they have faith? The priests, right? You would think they had faith, right? Did they have enough love to stop and help somebody in need? No. They had faith. They didn't have, Wesley's right, they didn't have enough love to stop and help them in what they should have done. Now abideth these, faith, hope, charity, but the greatest of these is charity. That's right, love. This is the greatest. You know, a scoffer is filled with pride and arrogance. He doesn't take correction for wrongs very well. He'll not give a moment to listen to rebuke. He don't want to listen to you. He's equated to the simple. He's a man of contention. He's very argumentative. Sometimes he gets angry. I mean, this is how Proverbs has described the scoffer. The scoffer sets a city in a flame because of his contentious ways and his proud spirit. Verse 9 says, if a wise man hath a controversy with a foolish man, whether he be angry or laugh, there will be no rest. Now, think about this. Think about the attributes of a fool. He loves to do simple things. He measures himself with his personal conscience and his opinions. There's no spiritual interest at all. He has no shame. He loves to argue. He has no control over his anger. I mean, these are the things that the book of Proverbs has described a fool as being. And if you consider the attributes, it stands to reason that if a wise man has a controversy with such a man, then there will be no rest for the man of understanding. You ever tried to talk to somebody like this? You ever try to talk to someone you just could not talk to? Did you get anywhere? The only thing you really wanted to do was go, after the conversation, just go pound your head against the wall because they didn't listen. Well, the Proverbs writer describes this man as being foolish. And so in verse 10 he says, the bloodthirsty hate him that is perfect. And as for the upright, they seek his life. Well, the objective of the wicked is to make the perfect man just as they are. Sinful, wicked in practices, language, dress. I mean, if the world cannot look at you and say, they don't belong here, then the wicked have done their job. We are to be sanctified. You know what the word sanctified means? Set apart. Set apart from what? The world. And if the world looks at us and says, well, I don't see no difference between you and what I'm doing, then something ain't right. Something's not right. The wicked have done their job because they have made the righteous man get involved in the sinfulness that they are involved with, the wicked practices that they are involved with, the language that they are around, and also the dress. Sometimes there was a man when I worked at Timpkin before leaving to go to school, to Memphis. He cussed like a sailor. And anytime you was around him, it was so bad sometimes you just had to walk away from the guy. And he didn't care. He just didn't care. And so one night he came up to me and he says, hey, I hear you're going to preaching school. I said, yeah, I'm leaving in just a few weeks. He said, man, that's great. He said, you're going to Memphis, right? I said, yeah. He says, that's a Church of Christ school, right? I said, yeah. He said, I'm a member of the church. I went, huh? And I did. I thought, what? He said, yeah, I go down here. I thought, really? There was no distinction at all. If you would have told me that prior to that, I had no idea. No idea that this man was a member of the church because of the way he talked to people. There was no distinction. There was no being sanctified at all. At all. And it even goes with dress. We need to make sure that we are set apart from the world. We don't dress like the world. We don't talk like the world. We live in the world, but we shouldn't live of the world, right? And so there needs to be a distinction that is to be made. Yes.
I know some of you probably know the NBA player, Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
passed away
Mhm.
in a car airplane. I was just thinking over the times that why so many millions go to something like that, but we can't go to church.
Yeah.
They turned out with like millions at his funeral, whatever. But look at the congregation now. There's only a handful of people.
Yeah. I made a statement one time in a congregation. Because you'd have 70 or 80 on Sunday morning, you'd have 25, 30 on Sunday night. And boy, I should have brought that poem, Wesley. Was it Nichols that wrote Not on Sunday Night? Was it Nichols that wrote that? And I got up in the pulpit and I said, look, a lot of you have already made your choices. You're not going to be here tonight. It's Super Bowl Sunday. So you've already made your decision. You're not going to be here tonight. Matter of fact, you made your decision last night and maybe a few nights before that you weren't going to be here tonight. And if that's the case, you want to go to do the Super Bowl when you ought to be here on Sunday night, let's pray the good Lord doesn't come back. And let me tell you, the attendance was up a little bit more that night. Just a little, not a whole lot. It was just a little bit. But there's certain congregations, Brandy, that will actually cancel their services for Super Bowl Sunday. They'll cancel it. Wes, you got some?
Yeah, I want to tell you about 3 ladies I know. One being Karen. Now, Karen can talk to you about the Bible and be as sweet as anybody could be. And that's great. Now, Candy would be a little harder. It was said that Candy could tell you you're going to hell and make you like it. I mean, she is that kind of person. Now, let's switch to Brandy. Now, Brandy is plain and clearly spoken. And we had an erring member here, and Brandy sent her a card. And that erring member called me, boy, so mad it was unreal. You wouldn't believe how mad she was. And it was about Brandy. And I said, well, what did Brandy say that's made you so mad? And this erring member could be at Walmart anytime she wanted to be, Walgreens, and she and another person came to visit with me in Elbin. Of course, we tried to encourage her to get back in church and do what's right. So Brandy simply sent her a card that said this, something to this effect. If you can go to Walmart when you want to, Walgreens when you want to, and go see my granny and pawpaw when you want to, don't you think you could come to church if you wanted to? And that, boy, burned her up. So I asked the erring member, what in there did Brandy say that was wrong? And if she said something that was wrong, then I'll be glad to jump on Brandy about it. And she couldn't point out one thing that Brandy had said that was wrong. So sometimes when we speak the truth, it irritates people. But we need to think about, do they really care for my soul? Or are they trying to help me?
That's right. I'm going to remember that about the Brandy thing. I'm going to use that sometime. Yeah, that's good. All right. Thank you very much for your time.